Hello and welcome to Focus Hour, a series where we host developers to talk about technology and inspiration behind their projects in the programming world. My name is Paul Thompson. Today we'll be talking to Craig Laparo about his project, PTN-Ninja. So Craig, thank you for coming on the show. Please tell us a little bit about yourself and your programming origin story.
Thanks for having me. I guess I've always been interested in computers for as long as I can remember. Never had any computer classes offered until I got to college, so it was kind of a hobby interest. I started programming on the TI-83 Plus graphing calculator, making just games and apps to make homework easier.
There you go.
I went from TI Basic to learning Z80 assembly for that processor, so I could make a game that could actually run faster, but I didn't get very far on that.
Okay. Well, that's awesome. So you were the guy selling the cheat codes for homework inside the calculator.
Yeah, I actually got to the point where the math teacher expected everyone to have my program, so he would make the quizzes extra difficult. So if you didn't have the program, it would be very tedious.
That is funny, dude. I'm similar in the sense that I wasn't introduced to programming in school. I got my whole bachelor's degree in film before I even learned what programming really was. So once I kind of was introduced to it, at that point I thought that I was really interested in it. So I'm glad you found it young and you were able to, dive in and tinker a little bit longer than I had the chance to. So did you end up going to college for computer science?
I did. I went to Cleveland State for 2 years, and I took one programming course there, Intro to Programming, and I had already been tinkering for a while, so it was very easy and a little disappointing because it was taught in some obscure flavor of Java, and I was like, this is so verbose and boring.
Yeah.
But go ahead.
Do you so I mean I know you made this project PTN-Ninja. Would you consider yourself a web developer first and foremost, or how would you kind of define what you do?
So I went to Cleveland State for 2 years. I took a year off and I started working on a multi-user calendar scheduling system for a company that my dad started, selling wholesale windows and doors. So that was where I got a taste for building something that other people used and found useful. Because before that, they were using a paper calendar that everyone had to walk into this one office and put their little sticky notes on.
Okay, yeah.
It's like, I can do something better. So I found a system and started modifying it, and that's how I got into web programming. But after that, I went to the Ohio State University for 4 years, got my bachelor in computer information science, and I did my capstone course in web application development, which did not teach anything about web application development. It was a misnomer.
Okay.
Anyway,
well, did you have a favorite project you worked on while you were in school there?
Not really. I didn't really do a whole lot of projects in school, but the last 2 years I was at OSU, I worked as a student web developer for the Arts and Sciences department. They had just acquired a bunch of other departments, and so they had all these old websites that were written in Cold Fusion, and they were trying to migrate them all over to Drupal. So they had me and a few other students writing Drupal themes that looked like these old websites, and then another team would copy all the content over.
Gotcha.
So I did that for about 2 years and got really good at CSS and making things look exactly the way they're supposed to.
Sweet. And Drupal's just kind of like WordPress, right? Where you can kind of just make little plugins and layouts and stuff.
Yeah, it's a content management system.
Okay.
I think in those days we're on Drupal 6, I think, and now they're probably on 9 or who knows. But
okay, sweet. I want to segue into the project PTN-Ninja, because this is how I found you. I myself made a little TAC game just as an exercise, and I was very surprised at how challenging it was to pull off with all these limitations of turning a 3D game into 2D representation, right? So once I built mine, I searched the web for anyone else who had maybe done it, and I found yours, and I was just blown away at the quality and the execution that you managed to pull off on this and how easy it was to use and follow. So I'm very impressed, and I'd like you to kind of maybe start with a high-level overview of what the project is for people who aren't familiar, and then we can talk a little bit more about the specifics of how you implemented it.
Okay. Should we go over what TAC is first?
Yeah, we definitely can, yeah.
All right. So TAC is a 2-player abstract game. The object is to build a road connecting two opposite edges. So this is where most people play TAC online. This is playtac.com. And so player 1 is white, but the first move you play your opponent's piece. So the goal is to build a road connecting two opposite edges of the board. And the road is connected orthogonally. So this is not a connection. Can you see my mouse?
Yep,
cursor?
I can see the cursor,
Okay.
Yep.
So this is not a connection, but this is. Barring any road, the game will end if someone runs out of pieces or fills the board. In that case, whoever has the most pieces, the most squares controlled by flat pieces wins. So you can also place a piece on its edge, and that's a wall or a standing stone. It doesn't count as part of your road, but so flat stones can be covered up by other flat stones or walls. And now I control this stack.
And then always what I found was tricky too is like there's no real limit to how much stack you can stack flat stones on each other, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is one of the challenges. So the stack can grow infinitely tall, well, for all intents and purposes. But you can only move the top 5 if you're playing 5x5. You can also most people play 6x6. And so in that case, you can move the top 6 pieces. But when you move a stack, you pick up that many pieces or however many pieces you want and choose a direction, up, down, left, or right. And you move along that direction, dropping at least one stone. So, and then there's also these capstones, which they do count as part of your road. You cannot move any piece on top of them, and they're able to crush standing stones and turn them into walls or flat stones.
I love the implementation of the game itself, like the like how Patrick Rothfuss and James Ernest turned it into a real game with real rules, because it feels just like it did in Wise Man's Fear, where it's like it's simple to learn but hard to master, and it's strategy and it's complex, but also really simple to get started. So I love how they pulled off the actual rules for the game. I think it feels pretty awesome.
Yeah, I read those books, the Kingkiller Chronicles, years before the game actually came out, and so when I saw they came out with a Kickstarter, and I was skeptical at first, but I listened to the rules of the game and I watched the gameplay a little bit, and I thought this is actually a really good game that has very simple rules that are easy to learn, but there's so much depth to it because as you continually add pieces to the board and stacks grow taller, your decision space grows, it just explodes near the end of the game. So it's easy to learn, difficult to master, and the TAC community has proven that by building better and better bots that now are even the top players can't beat.
Wow.
I think the top bot, which is still in the process of being developed, but it's an Alpha Zero style bot, so it's learned to play by playing itself, and
Wow.
it hasn't been put to the test much yet, but it's looking pretty strong. There are several bots on PlayTac. You can see Tiltac bot is the top rated bot. Before that, Tactician bot was the one to beat, but it's still very highly rated, but compared to some of the newer bots, it's showing its age.
That is wild. I've seen on some of your, I want to say on some of your like pull requests or something, I've seen you mentioning the bot. Is there something you do in PTN-Ninja that works with that, or am I just misremembering that?
The TAC community used to be very active on Reddit before it moved to Discord. And it was on Reddit that I found someone had defined a notation for describing games. And that person, Boachinski, I think is his handle, he built this little JS fiddle that allows you to step through games and leave comments and stuff. It's based on portable chess notation, PCN. So it's very similar. It's just adapted for TAC. And so you can load your own game and step through it. So this was I saw this and I was like, this is cool, but I can do something better, pretty sure. So that was when I decided to start building PTN-Ninja, and that really all I was trying to do is make a web app that allows you to load games and step through them and see them in a 2D representation. And that was the big challenge, because obviously it's a 3D game.
Yeah, super tough. So yeah, can you show off your solution for how stacking stones looks and how that plays? Just because I think that is super cool how you did that.
So I'm just gonna show here.
Dude, I love that.
So once you get past the carry limit, the stones start stacking to the side here as small versions. So, and there's no limit. Once there's 10 of these, it kind of just hides the rest, but you can see the count here.
Gotcha, yeah. Yeah, super cool.
So originally, my original design, I had it so that the you could only see the top stone here, just like this, and any stone under it was shown small to the side.
Gotcha.
Because I didn't like these faux 3D representations. I wanted it to feel like you're looking top down.
Yeah.
But someone left a comment on Reddit saying, why don't you just do this? And I thought, I don't like that. But the more I thought about it, the more I was like, this is a more natural representation.
Like it still looks, if you were sitting and playing TAC, it would look like that in front of you, where you would see, you would see them like that. So I do think it's quite elegant, and it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and when I got the idea to put pieces beyond the carry limit to the side, I thought, oh, this actually makes way more sense than what I was doing, because now you can at a glance see the relevant stones.
Yeah.
And I also liked how I was able to allow it to overlap whatever is above it. Yeah, just enough that, it feels 3D, but
Yeah.
doesn't really interfere too much with anything. So that was my solution.
That's awesome, dude. Yeah, and then that's wild that you rotate the board and do all that stuff.
Yeah, no one really uses perspective mode, but I threw it in there because I was playing around with it, and I thought, oh, this is actually does feel pretty 3D. So,
and what tool are you using to pull that off? What part? I mean, I have no idea how one would do that. What tool is that?
Well, I first started using Sublime Text and moved to brackets, and eventually now I'm using VS Code. So nothing really special. It's just let's see. So the first version I had just written with vanilla JavaScript. Then I realized I kind of need a UI framework. So I used like a very minimal one and rebuilt the whole thing. And eventually I came across Vue.js and Quasar, which is a whole framework built on Vue. And that enabled me to move a lot quicker. So
okay,
I rewrote the whole thing a third time using Quasar, and that allowed me to do, the whole UI with the buttons and the drawers and everything very easily. But the board itself, I wrote basically from scratch. It's, they're all just HTML elements.
Okay.
And in 3D mode, it's just, I just change how the pieces are stacked, but pretty much everything else is the same. I just wrote some code to determine what are the limits for rotation and how does the board rotate. Just kind of trial and error. I had an idea and played with it till it worked.
Yep. Iterate.
That's generally how. So after college, I immediately started working for a design research company in Columbus, Ohio. I worked there for about 8 years, and I kind of learned through osmosis the principles of good design. And that led me to design from the experience and work backwards to the programming. Whereas I feel like most developers, you just want to get it working, so you take the shortest path to getting it working. But I kind of do the same thing, but I work from both ends. I start with a vision.
That's super important.
And then kind of work towards what would be the easiest way to make this vision happen.
Yeah. And at what point was touch working? Because this works on the phone too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I've done it on my phone, and I was like, "How this is so easy, and it just freaking works." Like what is it when you went to Quasar that touch was just working, or did you have touch before that?
Well, I had my original intent for this app. One of the main purposes was to transcribe live games, so I wanted to make it work well on the phone. And Quasar has touch built in. It targets multiple platforms by default. So, but then I also had to make sure, as I'm building it, everything scales well, and so the way the drawers hide, that's all kind of built in. I did tweak it a little bit so that So it works the way
Man,
you
dude,
want it to.
I love looking at this, dude, because coming from a web developer perspective, just seeing this work so seamlessly, like most things work good when it's full screen like this, right? But not on touch or not on your phone, not when you resize the stuff. So it's just so cool to see how fluid this is.
You can also scale it, get the same effect. Scale up 500%. So, like, if there's not enough room for the menu to expand vertically, it switches horizontally. Stuff like that I just messed with it, tried to break it, found places where it didn't work quite right, and then I fixed it.
Sweet.
So this has been ongoing for since 2016. So it's been a long time in the making.
Yeah.
Just iterating.
Well, dude, the polish really shows, because I was blown away when I went to see. I'm like, I wonder if anyone else has tried this, and I found yours, and I was like, oh my god, like I'm ashamed of what I've done once I look at your implementation, because it's just so polished, dude. So yeah, I just want to give you praise on that. It came out fantastic.
Thank you.
Is there a horror story of like the hardest thing you came across in this game? Because I know it's difficult to design for. Like, what is the toughest part about making this game?
Yeah. So, the toughest challenge, because I was new to Vue.js and the way it updates the view when so it uses automatic data binding, and the version of Vue that I was using, it adds a bunch of listeners to everything that can change so that it knows when it changes. And I had gotten to the point where everything was so complex. When I'd switch games, it would take probably like 5 seconds on a decent machine. It would just sit there and take forever. Or if you hit undo or whatever, it took a long time. And I was like, what is going on here? So I was using the profiler, and I found it's tearing down all these listeners and setting them up again and tearing them down every time you change games or reload the notation. So what I realized is this complex game object has like thousands and thousands of listeners because it's being bound to the front end. So I was like, I have to start over. This is a disaster. And I'm like, I can't start over. It's way too big of an undertaking at this point. So eventually I solved the problem by writing even more code and adding even more complexity. So I guess it's more of a Band-Aid than an actual solve. But I still don't know the proper way to fix this. But what I ended up doing is making a separate output object where I would only update exactly what needed to be updated in this object at a good time. And the view is bound to this object, but not the rest of the game object. So
kind of just trying to control the complexity a bit by giving yourself like a little container to kind of hold the things in instead of letting it do what it was going to do. I mean, it does what it's going to do anyway, right? With all the binders and everything for the listeners.
Yeah, it's kind of like an intermediate step where the nice thing about Vue is like you change the data and your Vue automatically updates. But what I ended up having to do is re-add the tedium of managing these incremental updates manually by having this separate object that now I have to control when I'm updating it. So it took a little bit of the sweetness out of using Vue, but it solved the performance issue, and I was able to move on.
I'm a little baffled at how many features yours has, right? With the notation, and then you can export the notation, right? And then you can like import games and step through them and all of that.
Yep, and so you can generate code to embed a game into your blog, which someone has done. For a while, he was releasing a puzzle every day and embedding it in his blog, and so you can interact with it, solve the puzzle.
Wow, that's epic.
There's QR code, the file. You can export a PNG. This is, just rendered in Canvas. So originally I had just this HTML implementation of the board, and someone on the Discord was saying they wished that there was a good, PNG output or something. And I said, I could probably adapt my code to pretty easily to that. So I rewrote the board rendering, which was a little tedious because there's so many options. You can hide, different parts of the board and everything. So probably way more options than anyone needs, to be honest.
But it's awesome.
And that enabled me to do like thumbnails, so you can see.
That's awesome.
Thumbnails.
That's really cool.
And someone else was saying that they didn't like the color scheme, and I thought, well, there's too many little colors to make a theme editor. But I thought about it some more, and I ended up making a theme editor. So you can change just a few colors and it will automatically pick the rest, or you can go into manual mode and tweak everything.
Super cool.
And you can import and export the themes, and none of the themes, I have a few themes that I actually like, but most of these I don't think anyone uses them. Like, I kind of like this one.
I've done the red one before just because I thought it was cool. Yeah.
I was trying to do like an elemental theme. We got Terra, Ignis, and so on. This one's pretty good too if you like light themes. Made this one for print. And
that looks awesome.
Yes. So getting to the analysis features that you asked about, the community, the TAC community on Discord, they added this opening explorer where let's see, I'll just start a new. Okay. So you can see the top moves from this position that were played historically on PlayTac, and this database is updated daily. So you can see how many wins, draws, and losses there are for white. And you can also see the top games from this position. So as you go on, you can say, let's see this game. Oh, and I'm running in dev mode, so of course it won't open. But so there's the opening explorer, and then it was Nitzel and Skolin that made this opening explorer, and they also worked together to bring this Tiltac cloud. It's an instance of Tiltac that's hosted on Amazon, and you can do full game analysis pretty quickly.
That is super cool. I didn't know about that opening explorer. That's really cool.
Yeah, and the most recent feature is this Tiltac WebAssembly that can do interactive analysis. So as you're playing, you can let it go as long as you want until it runs out of memory, then it'll just stop. But it shows you the full.
What is that exactly doing? That's showing you like different results or different played games that it's analyzed before?
No, this is showing, so the bot Tiltac, which you can play against on playtac.com, this is a WebAssembly version of Tiltac. So it's running in the browser, and it's communicating through a web worker to the front end. And so it's taking the current position and it's trying to find the best move. And this is the continuation of that move. So, and it gives you an evaluation as well. So that's this, which shows up here. And so as soon as the board state changes, it starts analyzing the new position.
Okay.
And see how many nodes it's explored.
Yeah. Wow.
The depth is just kind of an arbitrary representation of how far it's explored.
Okay.
Because this is a Monte Carlo tree search bot. So it's looking at many different lines of play, and sometimes it will switch, realize that this one actually leads to a better position, and so you see the top move change sometimes.
Gotcha.
And there's another WebAssembly bot called Topaz, which was written by Abyss. And this one, it's not interactive, but it will stop the search early if it encounters a forced road win, which is pretty handy.
Okay.
And it's a pretty good bot. It gives you a little different perspective, but it's pretty strong. I'm not sure how the WebAssembly version compares to running it on native hardware.
Is there? I know you mentioned Nitzel and Skolin contributing to this. Are they the GitHub collaborators?
Yeah, they had a fork that had the opening Explorer, and they were hosting that for a while before I took it upon myself to rewrite their UI for it. And I took what they had and adapted it to the design language I had kind of developed. Because the code is pretty complex it's grown so much over the years. I'm probably the only person who knows where everything is.
Yeah. Oh, man. It's huge.
There's a lot to take in. Yeah. I'm grateful to anyone who's willing to contribute, but I don't expect anyone to jump in and pick up where I left off. So I still work on it when I can. Currently, I'm working on, for the past several years, I've been working on online gameplay off and on.
Okay.
So you'll be able to play asynchronously with people. You'll have like notifications when it's your move.
That is crazy, dude.
You'll be able to upload analyses and puzzles and have discussions about solutions and stuff like that. So I'm trying to, it's like I wanted to just do the minimum like online gameplay, but I realized I have to adapt the UI in such a way that it's almost like I intended to have this feature from the beginning, which is not the case. It was, more of an analysis tool, but
yeah. But like all the pieces are kind of set up for you to be able to do something like that. You just have to pump it out, right? Or not pump it out, but you've got all the parts, all the difficult parts you've kind of already solved for something like that, but now you have to implement each little piece.
Yeah. So I'm trying to find the most straightforward way has been tricky. This is my like a rough diagram of the database that I intend to build. And so this part is just for like PvP gameplay. And then here's analyses, and then puzzles. So I thought, if I build this, it's a short step to build this and this. So feature creep is the name of the game.
Okay, so I was misunderstanding. It sounded like I thought it was like I guess what's the trickiest part with that? Is it the fact that it's asynchronous and you have to kind of save?
No, that's the easy part because I'm using Firebase as my backend, and so the real-time database stuff is easy. But what's tricky is all the data structures I built are built specifically for the front end. They're not built to be stored on a database. So I have to yet again add more code and complexity to make another representation of all this stuff that fits in a database. And, things that are going to be changing are grouped together, things that will remain static, and I had to write the security rules, for who can change what, for all this stuff. So I'd started building the online stuff, and I got to a point where I was like, I should have planned better. So I stopped and I did this diagram and tweaked it, and I thought, okay, I'm done. And then I realized I needed to keep tweaking it.
Wow.
So I got so far away from what I'd started building, it really killed my motivation to pick up where I left off. Until, little by little over the years, that motivation kind of built back up. And I'm getting to the point where you can create games and you can almost load the games that you've created.
Okay.
So, but another thing that kind of put a damper on the online gameplay is another community member named Manatee. He took the code that I wrote for the PNG board generation, and he built a Discord bot that lets you play TAC in Discord.
Gotcha. This is the thing I had seen mentioned somewhere. So yeah. I guess in Discord. Okay, I was thinking in Twitch chat for some reason. But okay, so you can play against two people or just the bot inside Discord.
Currently you can only play against other people.
Okay.
But there is Topaz at one time had a feature where it could play asynchronously through TACBot, but I don't think it's been updated since the latest release of TACBot.
Okay.
But you can change themes and tweak settings, and I recently added / commands. So if you wanted to challenge someone, you could just do TAC opponent. And then these are all optional things you can change.
Okay. So do you give commands in the notation here, and then it'll export the PNG so they could see the move, or how does that kind of work?
So you create the game with the / command, and then you can just write the notation and hit enter.
Okay.
And if it's your turn and it's valid notation, it will immediately render the board and ping the other player.
That is super cool.
And then if they don't make a move in 24 hours, it gives you a random reminder.
Okay.
Pings you again. So
that's awesome, dude.
And then once the game's over, it will give you a link to PTN-Ninja. And you can also generate a link at any point in the game, but you can also browse the history. These are all past games. You can take this ID and do link game, and gives you a link. Click it.
Wow. Yeah.
And there it is.
That is awesome.
And then you
That's
can
super
get,
cool.
You can get, full game analysis. And most people use, for analysis, they'll use the version of Tiltac that runs in Discord, or that's available in Discord. It's also running on Amazon, but it's a different, this instance is managed by the guy who wrote the bot, Morton. And so he keeps it up to date with his changes, and seems to be a little smarter, or, give you better results than the version that's available in PTN-Ninja, but gives you very similar output. You can see here, you run this command, and this is the idea of a game, a PlayTac game. Gives you this little chart, which is similar to what you see in PTN-Ninja. And you can download this, or you can click this link and open it directly in PTN-Ninja. And you see that same chart here. And all that is it's PTN with comments. So you have the evaluation and then the principal variation.
Okay.
And PTN-Ninja is interpreting that. So it's interpreting the percentage as the evaluation. This is the chance that the bot thinks that white will win. And then the preferred or the principal variation. So,
wow. So when games are going on, like I've seen some tournaments go on, like are people using the bot to translate the moves live and see what these percentages are from the bot and everything? Or is it just an experimental?
If they do that, they're cheating, unless they're commentators.
No, yeah, like I'm just talking about like viewers, like just to see, just to analyze the game and stuff.
I did that with a recent tournament game after I released, or I guess it was right before I released the interactive analysis. I was following along, just playing the moves that they made.
Yeah,
just to see, how
if
well it held up,
accurate, or like if the top level players were somewhat mirroring what the bot was suggesting.
Yeah, and surprisingly, there's quite a bit of that. The bot will, there'll be stretches of moves where the bot guesses or predicts, a sequence pretty accurately. But of course, the deeper you get into the continuation, the worse the moves get.
Yeah. That is super cool, though.
Yeah, and there's actually a tournament game going on right now, I think.
No way.
Let's see if it's still going. Yep. So this is the current TAC champion, Aliano 2, versus Rabbit Boy 84, who's he's been with the community for a long time. He's written 2 books on TAC strategy.
No way. Wow.
Yeah.
That is super cool.
And he is a craftsman. He builds TAC sets.
Okay. So, that is awesome.
He's also currently, I think he's the new admin of the TAC Discord, since Simon has kind of stepped back. This is the guy who started the TAC Discord.
Okay.
He gave a lot of his time to TAC, promoting it, and he eventually said he needs to step back.
Yeah.
So.
Yep, I can see.
Still relatively active.
That dude, yeah, just the fact that there's a tournament right now, like that proves the community, right? Like this is a good game. People are playing it. People are interested. Both me and you independently tried to make our own version of it. So the community sounds sounds strong, and it is very cool to see people just active in it.
Yeah.
So I want to talk. Go ahead.
Just real quick, I made a bookmarklet so I can take an ongoing game here and open it in PTN-Ninja, so we can actually see this game that's going on. See that analysis that you're talking about.
Wait, so this is pulling the game from Playtac?
Well, it just took a snapshot of it. So last move is D6. So from now on, I'll have to follow along. Every time they make a move, I'll have to update it. But
that's wild. That is super cool. What is the technology that it analyzes the screenshot, or it analyzes the data off the Playtac page and generates your code for it?
Yeah, so it basically there's this function, I guess it's exposed. Oops. Get notation. So
there you go.
It just gives you
that PTN, is super cool. So, that's awesome, dude.
If you put that in the URL, it's not going to work because the line breaks. But if you put the notation in the URL, and PTN-Ninja will accept plain text.
Wow.
Or URL encoded plain text, because that was how this viewer did it.
Oh, okay.
And that was when Playtac came out. That was the only way, other than on Playtac itself, to view games. And so it still does that. If you hit PTN-Ninja, you can see a flash of the plain text there before it disappears.
Okay. Wow. That's sweet, man. I was wanting to talk to you about a little more agnostic programming talk about like any sort of methodologies you have for the craft of programming, or any advice you might give to your younger self in the terms of, building new things.
Yeah, that's a hard question. I think conceptually, coming to the understanding that programming is about managing complexity, it took me a long time to realize that, and to see the value of good planning, because it's very tempting to just jump in and get your hands dirty and make something work. But to make it work well is another thing. And then to make it work well and be easily maintainable and not let it fall apart as time goes on, that's a whole other level. So PTN-Ninja and the current project I'm working on for my work, and they're the most complex things I've ever built, and they're just getting more and more complex. And I'm working on them by myself, so if I had a team of people where we could divide things up, it would be a much different story. But I've always kind of worked alone, so I guess I'm a little different in that respect, because most programmers are working on a team.
Yeah. But what I did hear from you, and I like that you said this, like, attack it from both ends, right? Like the output of how the design is, how it feels to use, and then you pair it with the architecture. What architecture would support this output of what the design needs to be? And then you kind of just work at it from both ends, like you said, to try to meet in the middle at the finished project.
Yeah.
Is that do you use any specific tools for conceptualizing? Are you like a pen and paper guy to kind of visually draw these things out? Because when I built my TAC, I literally just drew it out, drew what I needed to do, what features I needed to add. like how far do you get in the design process before you start the architecture process, or is it you don't move forward until you have a good idea of what you're doing?
Well, I'm not very disciplined in this area. I could be better about it, but what I did with PTN-Ninja was I saw what was there, this JS fiddle. I thought about what it could be, and I kind of just let myself dream, more and more things started coming up, and I started to get this vision of like, wow, it'd be really cool if this thing existed. And I let that kind of drive me forward. And the first version of PTN-Ninja I built was built around this vision that I had, which ended up not being super practical. It was cool, and it was what I had envisioned, but the more I played with it, the more I realized, actually, it doesn't really fit the use cases, the general use cases. So I think the vision is important. I can't really do anything if I don't have a vision for what I'm trying to build. So for me personally, the mental visualization is important. And then when I get into the details where it's more abstract, less visual, sometimes I will need to pull out pen and paper and just map things out, because there's only so much I can do in my head.
Yeah.
But did that answer your question?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's so tough because everyone's got their own style, right, of expressing themselves. Even though the syntax might be strict for a certain language, everyone's expression with the limited syntax is wildly different. So everyone kind of approaches these things differently. Do you have any sort of creative rules you try to live by in terms of like, if you're stuck, always just go for a walk, or like, always take a break every 2 hours just to give your mind time to chew problems down and maybe try to come up with solutions?
I don't have any strict rules, but I do find that it helps to use like the Pomodoro technique and just work for like 25 minutes at a time, take a 5-minute break. If nothing else, it's good for your eyes to look into the distance every now and then.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I know. I always feel a little guilty that a lot of my hobbies, it's like, I'm a video editor, so I'm staring at a screen all day, and then I like to play video games, so I'm playing video games staring at a screen, and then I program making video games on a screen. It's like all my stuff is just, all that nearsighted staring at a screen.
Yeah.
That's tough. I do want to ask you if you have any links. I mean, I will for sure link PTN-Ninja, but do you have any websites you want to plug so we can follow your work in the future, or anything like that?
I don't have a portfolio or anything like that. Just my GitHub page is probably the best way to follow my work, my public work.
Great.
Most of what I do is private, so.
Okay, yeah, totally get it. Well, I do want to, if you're down, I want to show you my implementation of TAC.
Oh, actually, I played with it. It's not bad.
Okay. Yeah,
feel free to demonstrate it.
Here, I will show it just so that the viewers can see. The toughest part for me was like how to view the stones stacked. And then my implementation was literally just to kind of stack them and shrink them as they get stacked. So like,
it's an interesting idea, and it is a concept that I considered when I was.
It's just thinking, that we lost real estate, right? As we stacked higher, the legibility of the stones, it only worked to about 10 stones tall. So it fails there because it becomes a smaller and smaller pyramid until you can't even see what's going on. So
yeah, it makes the pieces that are supposed to be closer to you smaller. And the pieces that are further away bigger.
Yeah,
so that's a little trippy.
Yeah, I agree. It was and you know, when you said like people will just try to make it work, that's literally all I was trying to do. This was my my capstone project for Harvard CS50. So we were supposed to just make something out of code. So that was my submission. So I just had the idea and I wanted to do it. So I went and I streamed the process on my channel and then, you know, talked through it piece by piece. But I totally agree with your, you know, with you saying how, you know, those shortcomings and stuff. And that's just one of the reasons, you know, I think even that took me like maybe 2 or 3 months to make. But it is not very, you know, it's not very, I can't rotate the board because of the way I did it. I can't, you know, have more than 10 stones stacked. So there are plenty of limitations. And that compared to PTN-Ninja, I like I said, I was just blown away at how good you did. So great job. I give you props.
Thanks.
You're a legend in my book, dude. So thanks for agreeing to come on the show. And I wish you all the luck in the future and I always think luck is like not the right word. It's more like you get what you sink into it, right? Like you get all the results are because you sat there and you pumped it out and you worked on it and the effort that you put in paid off. It's not a magic trick. It's hard work.
I'd say it's kind of 50-50. It's like, you know, where does the inspiration come from? It's not like you just force yourself to do it, right?
Yeah. Yeah, so, and I'm a big believer in like the ideas, creative ideas you get are meant to be for anyone. You know, like just because you had an idea doesn't mean it's yours and you own it. It's sort of just like a gift from the universe, and it's kind of our job. Whoever holds on to it, whoever finds it, can craft it and return it back to the universe. And thanks for giving me a chance because you were the first guest I'm having here on this series. So
cool.
I just want to thank you for giving me a chance and then, being on the show. So I appreciate you and your time.
Well, thanks for reaching out.